sure, Stu. I think we've got our wind machines.
Very hot,
I'm afraid. Thank you so much for joining us in this extreme heat and for bearing with us. But hopefully this will be a super interesting conversation if you can stick it out in the heat. I'll just put all our props down. So my name is Valerie Bounds. I am the co-founder and the Chief Creative and Strategy Officer at Aurora, and we are a people-powered brand and marketing agency. And I'm joined by the fantastic Katie Jackson, who's Chief Audience and Marketing Officer at Channel 4. And we're going to be talking about a phrase that seems to be increasingly used, and it's certainly something we're using, people-powered. It sounds great. It sounds human, open and progressive, but too often it stays in the strategy deck. So the real question for us is, what does it actually take to give people a meaningful role in your brand, your culture, and your creative output? At Aurora, for us, people power is about that participation. It's about belief, advocacy, creativity, and through that momentum. And Channel 4 really is one of the most interesting brands to explore this with. Its whole mission is about creating change through entertainment, and Katie's going to be telling us a lot more about that in just a moment. And I'm going to forget to click my clicker. There's us. And a bit about Aurora. The kind of work that Aurora do, we do a big agnostic campaigns for a whole vast array of brands. We saw real people power through our Help Ukraine song campaign a few years ago, wrapped around Eurovision when we hosted it for Ukraine. And we created a global media moment, but it became a global moment because of people all over the world, shared active solidarity with Ukraine. We mobilized musicians, choirs, creators, and everyday people all around the world. And now we're working with a wonderful brand called Next Playground. They're new to the UK. We're launching them at the moment. Super exciting. They're going to be rolling out across Europe. We've just had, if it plays, a little video. I don't know if it's going to play. We've just had an activation at Wimbledon last week, but it's all about getting kids down, getting them active. And the interesting thing about Next is at the time where obviously a lot of the press is very negative about digital and devices and kids on screen time, they're all about movement, togetherness, solving those issues of people going off into their silos and their own screens. This is about family time, safe, active play, and it's all about grassroots advocacy. But today, our real focus is Channel 4. So welcome, Katie. Let's start with Channel 4's mission, which is to create change through entertainment. What an incredible mission that is. How does it shape the way that you think about audiences, culture, and indeed your marketing?
Just a really small question to start us off. And I should also say I feel more pressure than ever before to say something interesting because it's so hot outside and you're all choosing to be here. So thank you. I think for us, probably the start point as we consider the central mission statement around creating change through entertainment is that we can't do that if no one is watching and if no one is engaging with us. So you can't really create change unless you are reaching enough people to affect some momentum and change in that way. And I think that's particularly relevant at a time like now where we're talking about a general shift into lots of individual super serving of different audiences, which can be dangerous because you almost lose sight of your broader mission statement. As you go deeper and further down into micro-targeted segments, you run the risk sometimes of forgetting to take a step back and working out what your overall proposition should really look like for audiences. So that's how we tend to think about it, is how do you balance the niche subject matter, the relevant and challenging subject areas, with also trying to maintain mass reach in order to actually deliver on that broader mission.
I mean, that's incredible. And one of the kind of clearest ways that you create change and have become known over the decades for is representing...
That makes us sound very old.
Well, no. But you're representing unheard voices. I mean, that's really important, I know to you. But there's a real difference between representing people and actually presuming that you know them.
Yeah.
So how do you think about the line between inviting people in and actually just trying to speak on their behalf?
I didn't think I was going to reference Jeff Bezos today, but I just will for a second because I really like how he talks about always leaving an empty chair in a meeting to represent the audience. I think that is such a surprisingly effective way of thinking from him. But for us, I would say probably it's worth thinking about this in 3 different ways. I would say we try and think about who's in the room when we're talking about ideas, when we're thinking about what's going to be made.
Yeah.
I'd say we think about who the decision maker is and how we're considering the background of that decision maker in the round. And then we probably also think about the people who are actually responsible for the making. So who are the people behind camera, in front of camera, who we believe can speak to the representative group that we're after. But I would also say that when we talk about representation, the word I would leave you all with is context. And I think context is so important to move away from what quite a one-dimensional view on what representation means can lead to. It's very easy to say you're representing unheard voices or underrepresented communities by making a list of those communities and thinking about featuring them in some way or other in what you're producing. How we represent faith, how we represent gender, how we represent queerness, how we represent ethnicity. And actually the context in which you represent those voices is probably disproportionately more important than just saying, look at me, give me a gold star, I've managed to represent something. So I would say consider that. Just because you are casting, black talent, just because you are casting gay talent, doesn't mean your job is done. Mm-hmm. You also need to think about how you're platforming that talent in the right way, with the right context.
That's such an important point, isn't it? And I think, over the past few years, with the sort of backing away from wokeness and all of this, it's really nuanced and really important. And the people on the receiving end of that content as well, thinking about them, as you say, so that it's not received with cynicism.
Yeah.
Because that's just the key to that participation and advocacy, isn't it? Really feeling it.
Yeah, and I think, it would be daft of me not to reference the Paralympics for Channel 4 in the context of representation, because even in my time at the channel, the way we think about co-creating the territories that we get to, in thinking about the Paralympic theme and how we consider the stories that we want to tell, has changed quite substantially from back in 2012, when it felt much more around a campaign that the channel was making to do a job for the disabled community.
Yeah.
But the disabled community and the disabled athletes are now involved from the beginning in helping shape how we're thinking about how and what to represent.
I mean, that's just so important, isn't it? And just having that involvement feels, it's ownership. And that's certainly the approach that we would take, and how we manage to actually embed our work within, businesses and big megalith corporations, as well as communities. So it's such an important thing. Another part of your role is to challenge with purpose. Purpose gets used, bandied around a lot. So it feels especially important now, when a lot of culture is obviously being shaped by algorithmic preference, sameness, and safe choices. We're moving away from some of that challenging with purpose, or it feels like we possibly are, thanks to AI and everything else that's happening around. So how are you thinking about challenging audiences in a way that's got a clear point of view, but without simply creating noise and indeed polarization?
Yeah, you mean sort of how to challenge without just challenging for the sake of it, in a way. Also, I love the idea that it's part of my personal job to challenge with purpose, and I will be taking that back to the office. I think, I'm not sure noise is a bad thing, is one thing I would say. So challenging or provoking and creating a bit of momentum around what you're saying doesn't have to be bad.
Yeah.
I think the way that we consider it is possibly subconsciously rather than intentionally, but I think we consider it both with a lightness of touch and also with the heavy weight of responsibility that being owned by you as a public service broadcaster we carry. So 2 examples of that. One very timely. Everyone is talking about the World Cup. That's a cultural moment for the UK right now, especially after Monday morning. Channel 4 doesn't air any World Cup matches, so we decide to challenge the cultural moment where we assume everyone is watching the football and is obsessing over the football by running some social activity and also some on-air activity that says at 1 o'clock in the morning, listen, thanks so much to the 6 people that are watching right now. We really need those ratings. That is challenging a little bit in a very silly, fluffy, light way, with a kind of knowing wink that the whole of Britain right now is talking about the football, but we're just saying, actually, we're here to do something different. And props to the team who belong to a lady sat in the second row here who were responsible for creating some very excellent social content there. Thank you, Janine. Shout out to you. Yes, well done. Look at you, Janine. I almost want to get you to stand up. Yeah. And then I think there's also, not to bring the tone down, but there is also a weight of responsibility to challenge what potentially is now becoming a bit more culturally acceptable than it used to. Yeah. We all know what I'm talking about as I use those words. So thinking about our mission statement to create change, brackets, through entertainment, I think one of the other things that I feel really proud of is creating a piece of content that we put out last year called Sorry Not Sorry, in the wake of the perceived rollback of DEI commitments in the US that was starting to trickle through into the UK. And I felt very strongly in my role that the brand had a responsibility to put forward a point of view, not for the sake of it, but to put forward a point of view because we credibly and legitimately own a space of representation that says, hey, we're sorry, not sorry, that actually we represent all these different cohorts and groups. So kind of, I don't know if I can swear, but fuck off.
I think you can, Yeah, I think you're
I just did hands space. As well as words. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, damn right. Swear. Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I'm not old either, but growing up, seeing Channel 4 and everything that you do, I've always felt that that's what you were doing, even if you didn't kind of, manifest that through a phrase or a written purpose. And the purpose is all about, are you living and breathing it? Yeah. And everybody talks a good game about having it.
Totally.
The key is absolutely cracking it, and people, as you say, it just being an innate thing. So you do, with agility, produce and take opportunities to produce social content. And you can do it, and then it's bold and it's well received. So that's fantastic. So I want to move on to the third part of that Channel 4 lens, which is reinventing entertainment. Again, a big statement, and a big part of that now seems to be about working with creators, younger audiences, and different models of commissioning and collaboration that perhaps maybe other broadcasters wouldn't do. So how are you rethinking where ideas come from, and who gets to shape them, and how new forms of you just referenced one, but new forms of entertainment are really being developed?
So probably the best example for Channel 4, in answer to your question, is to talk about Channel 4.0. For those who aren't aware, 4.0 is a YouTube channel that is specifically youth-focused. It's turning 4 years old in October. Happy 4th birthday to 4.0. We now have about 1.2 million subscribers, over 1 billion views, but the difference is in how we create what runs on the 4.0 channel versus what may be described as more traditional commissioning approaches that run across the rest of the linear portfolio. And we've worked with over 200 plus creators, something like that, on developing lots of original IP that runs on that 4.0 YouTube channel. And the difference, I think, is that what we've tried to do is develop formats where you can see multiple creators coming together in one space. Yeah. So it's not contingent or reliant on a single face to front that piece of IP, which helps with reach, of course, because everyone wants to start getting involved and cross-pollinating each other's efforts. And the analogy is clear here, I think, because even in digital commissioning spaces, you can't scale Mr. Beast without Mr. Beast, but you can scale IP like, I don't know, some of the shows that we're running on Channel 4 Served right now, or well, there's a whole bunch that we can go and look at, but you can scale those because we're working with multiple different creators, which enable us to then develop that further. And I would say that doesn't mean, because often I can be misquoted on this, that doesn't mean a wholesale shift away from the more traditional commissioning model. You still need that because you need to maintain that center of editorial gravity that does the job I was talking about earlier, which is you're super serving your segments down here, your target audiences down here, but you also need to have a clear perspective and a point of difference at a top line level. So there's a role for both.
Amazing. So it's a hybrid, but it's definitely an evolution. Amazing. We're in a room full of marketers. We're going to have to talk about how we measure. You mentioned reach. How do we measure this? Because some of the things we're talking about are, renowned for how difficult they are to measure. They're softer metrics. So you've got a really interesting take on this around talkability. So perhaps can you tell us a bit more about that, and how do you think about measuring the real human impact of the entertainment and the content that you're producing beyond those hard metrics?
It's very topical, isn't it? I think I saw a piece this week about CPMs and whether or not we need to move away from CPMs now as a measure of success. I think the reason why we started developing a talkability metric at Channel 4 is because particularly when it comes to content discovery and choosing what you want to watch across any platform, by and large, the importance of recommendation and word of mouth is just continuing to rise versus more traditional broadcast ways of communicating that message to your audiences. So I slightly changed our approach coming into 26 to focus more on an objective around engagement, around social sharing, around thinking about activating what was at the heart of a piece of programming off-platform and off-screen to be able to drive a little bit of conversation around it, which in turn we start to be able to track the value of as we are, without getting into proprietary territory, able to match the value of some of that activity now to views and viewers as they come onto our platform. And I think the importance of trying to create or generate talkability off-screen is just increasing in importance, alongside, of course, working on your GEO strategy, because the LLMs are important to consider in that. And the real-world impact, before we play you a very quick film to give you an example of one of my favorites this year, the real-world impact is in me witnessing it, in the teams witnessing it in real life. We created a fountain of filth on the South Bank earlier this year to engage audiences around a program we made called Dirty Business, around the water companies dumping sewage into the UK's waterways. If you haven't watched it, I really urge you to. It's an exceptional piece of television. And we decided to invest in creating an installation on the South Bank, showing how people were impacted by this, by having brown water being vomited out of their mouths. You'll see this in a second. But the real world impact was, for me, so amazing as I walked down the South Bank at 6 a.m. on a Monday after they'd spent the weekend building this thing. And I kid you not, I walked past this man on his phone who was saying, as I passed him, "You have to get down here. Channel 4 have got this amazing thing up about their new show called Dirty Business." And I got to the team and I went, "Is that a plant?" Because that feels too easy, I guess. But let's have a watch, because I think it's a great piece of work.
Let's watch it. It is incredible.
Raw sewage is being poured into UK rivers by water companies.
A total of 3.6 million hours.
I can smell the sewage running into this street.
Our water sector is absolutely broken.
You realise that the fountain is made up of a number of individuals appearing to vomit sewage water from their mouths.
Publicising this week's TV drama, The Fountain of Filth in London, a Channel 4 art installation. Fat cat water monopoly boss, laughing all the way to the bank, looks down on a public variously vomiting.
When When I was 18, I got dirty seawater in my lung. I was taken to hospital. I was there for a month, and I lost 20% of my left lung capacity.
It's a really, really powerful installation.
A striking installation titled Fountain of Filth.
alla fontana della Sporcizia, South Bend.
This is incredible.
This has to end. The government needs to take urgent action on this crisis.
So congratulations on that absolutely incredible campaign. And I know it's won awards, and it's just the most incredible example. And we are out of time. I'm so sorry, because I think we had more to dig into, and we could talk all day. But thank you. That's been the most incredible and hopefully insightful conversation for everybody. We've got a few very top-level key takeaways if people want to have a photo. But thank you, Katie. Thank you so much. And thanks to you all for being in here in the massive heat. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.